On October 30th, 1961, the Soviet Union detonated a nuclear device with the force of 50 million tons of TNT. One device, one explosion, one fireball wider than a city. It climbed 60 kilometers into the sky, so high it touched the edge of space. The shockwaves circled the planet 3 times. People felt the vibration 560 miles away. This wasn't just a test. It was a global message. And the most incredible part? It was originally designed to be twice as powerful. So why did they scale it back? What happens when a single creation becomes too hazardous to even exist? And how close did we come to permanently altering the atmosphere? If you've ever wondered what ultimate destructive power looks like, or if humans could actually end the world, this is the story you need to hear. If this video helped you grasp just how close humanity came to a point of no return, hit that like button so more people can understand the scale of what occurred. And subscribe. We don't just cover history, we uncover the moments that nearly changed everything. It was a cold morning over Novaya Zemlya, a remote archipelago in the Arctic Ocean. The year was 1961, and the Cold War was at its peak. Tensions between the US and USSR had reached a fever pitch. Berlin was divided, and global flashpoints were emerging everywhere. The Soviets decided to demonstrate a level of engineering that defied logic. The AN-602, nicknamed Tsar Bomba, 50 megatons. That's 50 million tons of TNT equivalent. To put that in perspective, the Hiroshima event was 15 kilotons. This was over 3,300 times stronger. The device itself weighed 27 tons, was 8 meters long, and required a specially modified Tu-95V bomber just to carry it. Scientists calculated that if detonated at the full 100 megaton design, the fireball would have reached the ground even from a high altitude, vaporizing the aircraft instantly. To prevent a total catastrophe for the crew, they replaced the uranium components with lead, cutting the yield in half. Even at 50 megatons, it remains the most powerful man-made explosion in history. The device was released at 11:32 a.m. Moscow time. It fell for 188 seconds before detonating 4,000 meters above the ground. The fireball expanded to 8 kilometers in diameter, wider than the heart of Manhattan. It didn't just glow, it consumed the horizon. The heat pulse was capable of causing severe burns 100 kilometers away. The shockwave traveled at over 1,000 km/h, flattening structures for miles. The mushroom cloud rose to 64 kilometers, 7 times the height of Mount Everest. This wasn't just an explosion, it was a planetary event that shifted the very air we breathe. Let's look at the data. The Tsar Bomba released 2.111017 joules of energy. That's more than the combined output of all conventional explosives used in World War II multiplied by 10. The fireball reached temperatures hotter than the surface of the sun, over 10 million degrees Celsius. At that heat, matter ionizes instantly. The atmosphere ITEL became a conductor. Seismic stations as far as Norway and Alaska detected the tremor. The shock wave circled the Earth 3 times, picked UV sensors days later as it echoed around the globe. The thermal radiation was strong enough to ignite forests 250 kilometers away. Despite its size, the Tsar Bomba was technically clean for its scale. Because of the lead components, 97% of its energy came from fusion rather than fission. This meant only 3% of the yield resulted in radioactive fallout. This created a strange paradox. The most terrifying device ever made was also one of the least polluting per megaton. But clean is a relative term. The electromagnetic pulse could have crippled communications across entire continents. If detonated over a major metropolitan area, the destruction would be absolute. We are talking about a 35-kilometer radius of total erasure. No buildings, no infrastructure, just a landscape turned to glass. If dropped on a city like New York, the blast wave would shatter glass in Philadelphia, and the heat would be felt as far away as Connecticut. The mission fell to Major Andrei Durnovtsev. He flew the Tu-95V with a survival chance estimated at only 50%. The plane was coated in reflective white paint to bounce off the thermal energy and equipped with heat-resistant shielding. A massive parachute was used to slow the device's fall, giving the crew a few precious seconds to escape the immediate blast zone. The plan was to drop, turn 90 degrees, and push the engines to the limit. At 11:32 a.m., the release happened. The plane went into a steep dive to gain speed. Then came the flash. A light so bright it could be seen from 1,000 kilometers away. When the shockwave finally hit the plane minutes later, it dropped 1,000 meters instantly, tossed around like a leaf. Durnovtsev and his crew survived the flight, but the experience was harrowing. While Durnovtsev was honored for his bravery, he passed away years later from complications that many suspect were linked to the extreme environments of his service. The impact on the test site at Severny Island was profound. Although the area was uninhabited, the atmospheric disruption was unprecedented. Radio blackouts lasted for hours across the hemisphere. The aurora borealis appeared as far south as Finland. Unnatural, pulsing colors triggered by the massive atmospheric displacement. This was a disturbance of the Earth's natural systems. Why haven't we seen anything bigger since? Because it's strategically unnecessary. The Tsar Bomba was too heavy for standard missiles and required a vulnerable bomber. Military doctrine shifted towards smaller, precision-guided warheads. 10 smaller devices spread across a region are far more effective than one massive monster. Furthermore, the political consequences were too high. The event led directly to the Partial Nuclear Test Ban Treaty of 1963, which ended atmospheric testing. From that point on, the world moved its experiments underground, and the era of the superbomb ended. Interestingly, the Soviets designed 3 versions of this technology. While the 50-megaton version was the only one tested, a 100-megaton design was fully engineered, along with a smaller 10-megaton version for missiles. If they had proceeded with the 100-megaton test, the environmental consequences would have been exponentially worse. The fireball would have breached the mesosphere, and the delivery aircraft would have had zero chance of survival. It was a weapon of suicide, not just war. To put the danger in perspective, if we took the world's current arsenal of roughly 12,000 warheads and detonated them at once, the Earth itself would not break apart. The energy required to physically destroy a planet is roughly 2 Cal 1032 joules, thousands of times more than all our weapons combined. However, while the planet would survive, life as we know it would not. The resulting nuclear winter from soot entering the atmosphere would block the sun, collapse global food chains, and lead to a centuries-long deep freeze. The real threat isn't just the fire. It's the cold and hunger that follow. History shows us how thin the margin for error is. In 1983, a system malfunction falsely indicated 5 incoming missiles to a Soviet command center. Officer Stanislav Petrov chose to trust his gut and label it a false alarm, single-handedly preventing a global launch. In 1961, U.S. intelligence was on high alert during the Tsar Bomba test, not knowing if it was a test or the start of a conflict. One panicked officer or one misunderstood signal is all it takes to change the course of human history forever. The Tsar Bomba was less a weapon and more of a demonstration of the absurdity of total war. It proved that humans could create forces that are essentially unmanageable. This realization helped fuel the global anti-nuclear movement and led to the first real steps toward arms control. The device showed that escalation has no winner, only a scale of loss that no nation can afford. Today, we face new challenges: hypersonic delivery systems, automated defense networks, and cyber threats that target command structures. The time for decision-making is getting shorter, and the systems are becoming more complex. The lesson of 1961 remains. Great power requires even greater restraint. In 2020, previously classified high-speed footage of the test was released. It shows the explosion in terrifying clarity. The fireball rolling outward like a living organism, the shockwave rippling through the clouds, and finally, a horizon completely consumed by light. There is no sound in the final moments of the footage, just the visual evidence of a power that should never be unleashed again. It stands as a silent warning from the past to to the future. The Tsar Bomba was the pinnacle of destructive engineering, a 50-megaton reminder of our capacity for both innovation and ruin. It wasn't meant to be used. It was meant to ensure it never had to be. If this look into the scale of history's most powerful explosion opened your eyes, hit that like button to help the channel reach more people. Thanks for watching.